plus the high point of the conference is going to be hearing from you, Governor, because we've been talking all day today about what we started out by saying, how do we change the conversation? How do we change the conversation about the people who are poor, about the food insecure, about the way we treat our neighbors, and how to solve problems, or how to find new opportunities. And we talked about what questions do we ask, and are we asking the right questions to get to the end point we want to get to. But the great thing about having you here, Governor, is that you're the one who can change the conversation. And I know we've talked, you and I, and in this room before, about the issue of hunger and about doing something significant to end hunger in Vermont. So I appreciate, and I think we all appreciate, you taking the time. I know this is about the busiest. I worked in state government for 10 years in Vermont. This is the busiest time in the governor's year, these closing days of the legislative session, and trying to get all those big bills through, and he's got to be there to twist some arms sometimes. So we appreciate you taking the time to be here, and we appreciate that you have been a voice for the issue of hunger and for ending hunger and for making Vermont a better place to live. So, Governor Schulman.
Thank you so much, John. I'm so delighted to be here. We should give a big hand to John Sales and the entire Vermont Foodbank team. I just got to tell you, I would have so much rather been here with you than twisting arms in the legislature to try to get them. You know, it's like herding cats. You ever herded cats? It's a tough job. So I'm delighted to be here where we can have a thoughtful discussion about the extraordinary work that you all are doing. And, you know, a day in my life doesn't pass without me focusing on the work that you're all doing. Someone just said, you know, the great thing about today, I sat quietly in the back and listened to your comments about the discussion, but one that rung true to me was the person who said, you know, the great thing about today is that we didn't focus on what was wrong, which is what we tend to do as governors and as people who are trying to solve a tremendous problem, hunger in Vermont. But instead we focused on what we're getting right. And I just got to tell you from my perspective, when you look around the country, not suggesting that we don't have lots of challenges that we do, but when you look around the country, you look at the Vermont Foodbank and all of the volunteers and ancillary organizations working together with you, I would argue that we are doing it right. The things that are happening right are from the people in this room. And a huge thank you from me for getting it right day after day after day as our challenges grow, but as you marshal more precious resources to take care of our neighbors and friends in this great state. You do it better than anyone. So thank you from me. And you know, when you think about it, and the challenge that we have to win the war on poverty, and I gotta say, I'm gonna keep it a little bit short because you've been in this room so long, you probably don't, I know I'm standing between you and 84 degrees and no clouds. But it's pretty remarkable. 280 food shelves, meal sites, senior centers. Obviously, so many people doing it right, after school programs all over the state, that you're making it happen. 8 million pounds of food, a ton of food. 86,000, more than a ton. It's 86,000 Vermonters that you're serving every single day. And what really rung true to me in the last couple of years as we faced the challenges of being governor was when we had the floods in April of 2 years ago, the floods in May, and of course Irene in August. And you know, we stood there shoulder to shoulder with John and the board members and the hardworking employees and all of you that are working on the front lines, and found a way in the middle of the worst recession in American history, where we had longer lines for people that were hungry than at any time in any of our memories, and took on a whole new group of challenges. People who had had homes that lost them, who had had places to live that lost them, who suddenly found themselves hungry overnight, not in a slow and methodical path to hunger. So I'm proud of it, and I do think the Vermont Foodbank and all of our associate organizations do a better job of fighting this challenge than anyone else, and we should be a model for the country. Now, having said that, and to emphasize what's right, we got a lot more work to do. And I sometimes think that in politics and in public policy and in the conversations, why the conversation you've had today is so important, is that we don't take the time to sit down and ask what it is we're doing well and what we're not doing so well and how we can marshal resources ever so precious to do it better. And you know, when I began this second term that I had the privilege of having as governor, I made the center of my agenda the fact that when you look at all of the good work that we have done in this state to help reduce poverty, to ensure that every kid gets a strong start, we're not doing so well in moving more poor kids, more hungry kids, successfully through our educational system and on to prosperity. That's our challenge. We spend more money per pupil, $17,500 per pupil after the last town meeting days, than any other state in America. But when you look at the good work we've done on educational quality, of ensuring that we have equal access to resources, that kids who come from property-poor towns have the same access to resources as kids that come from property-rich towns. With all that good work we've done with Act 60 and 68, and some people love it, some people hate it, we'll debate it till the cows come home, we tend to not look at the simple question, that we haven't moved the needle one iota in terms of moving more poor kids beyond high school. That's a real challenge for us. And we don't look more closely at the fact that we've got more people than ever lining up for the services that we provide. And we all know that we got to do better. I propose, and I think when we leave this legislative session, you know, we'll be the only state in the wealthiest nation on Earth, on planet Earth. Vermont will be the only state that when kids go to school and they qualify for federal meals subsidies, regardless of where you qualify in an income line, I intend us to be the state where we say, if you're low income and you're hungry, you get food. And you don't have to pay a penny out of your pocket to get that food. When we ask the question, why aren't we moving more kids from low-income families beyond high school? And we all know that the reality I face every day is that having been a governor who was actually born and raised in the state, when I was a kid with a high school degree, and many people who are gray and wrinkled and old like me will agree with me on this one, you know, when we graduated from high school in Vermont, you had a pretty good chance of making a good living with a high school degree. Today, that's no longer the case. At the same time, we seem to think that kids can succeed in school if they've got an empty belly. We all know that can't happen. So it's a small but important step that we can take to help ensure that we're getting more people beyond high school. But we also have to look carefully at all of the other investments that we're making to try to move folks out of poverty. And I would argue that we're failing there as well. That the policies that we've put in place to help our most vulnerable all too often lock you in a system where you have trouble, challenges, obstacles to jobs and prosperity. What do I mean? I'll give you a specific example. I spend a lot of time going around and talking to jobs creators about how I can help create jobs and raise incomes for Vermonters that have jobs. And I'll never forget going into Sonax Industries down in Rockingham. Who's here from Windham County? There you go. You know, it's a little business. I hear this all the time. This is an example. A little business that started in the secondary automobile parts business, a guy named Neil Joseph in my hometown of Putney. When I was on a board of select people there 30 years ago, he rented a town garage from us. He and one other person started this little business. Now they've got 142 employees in a brand new building in Rockingham, and they're doing great. And when I visited recently to ask how I could help, the CEO called me in afterwards, and he said, tell me, why do you have poverty programs in Vermont that lock people in poverty? I said, well, what do you mean? He said, well, this happened to us before, but we just hired a woman, a great woman, very bright woman from Brattleboro. She got pregnant when she was 15. She had 3 kids. As soon as she could get the youngest of the 3 into quality child care, she took a job with us. And she felt so good about herself. I mean, it was her first job, incredibly bright. We loved her. She loved us. She came in 4 weeks into the job, second pay period in tears, said, I got to quit. And I said, why? She said, well, I've lost my child care subsidy. I've lost my housing subsidy. And I can't feed my kids if I work for you at the wages you're paying me. I do better if I stay home. And she went back in tears. So, you know, I proposed a number of packages to the legislature this year that would ask the questions, how do we take a system that's locking our kids in poverty because we're not getting enough past high school, that's locking their moms and sometimes dads in poverty because they're not able to take a job and take a raise like the rest of Vermonters? And how do we reconfigure the money we're spending now to spend it smarter so that everybody has access to a prosperous future, not just those who are lucky enough to graduate from high school? That's our challenge together. So when we think big, I keep saying we've got to think about what we're doing well, what we're not doing so well, and how we can do it better. And you know, Vermonters are the most generous people on earth. We are. We actually have some of the most generous anti-poverty programs in America, and we should. But when we find that our lines are growing longer, that we're spending a lot of loot, but we're not winning the battle, we need to spend more time having conversations like you've been having today. Our job together is to ensure that this great state of Vermont gives everybody a strong start, gives everybody the ability to make a living, to have a decent place to live. Make sure that everybody has access to the resources so that they can put food on the table. And make sure that we match our generosity with thoughtful, innovative programs that give everybody a chance to prosper. And that's where we're not doing so well. So, thank you for the work you're doing. My job is to work together with you to take the programs we're running now and make them even better so that we see the lines go down, we see more people making it on their own, and we see a more prosperous future for every single Vermonter. I keep saying, cheer up, cheer up. We got a better shot than the other 49 states. We really do. We got a better heart, a better work ethic, more imagination, and more ingenuity than anyone else on this planet. We got the 3rd lowest unemployment rate in America. And the 2 states that are beating us happen to have a lot of oil and coal they're drilling for, and if we had that, we'd be #1. You know, we've got more green, clean, high-tech jobs than any other state in the country. We care more about our neighbors and our friends and total strangers than other people do. We've got stronger communities, stronger senior centers, stronger schools, and a stronger future. So together, we've got to continue to do better, and we will. And I want to say that I know the work you are doing is tough. I know it's hard. I know it sometimes seems like there will never be an end to the demand. But I'm optimistic that together we can take the things that we're doing right and do them even better so that we reduce hunger in Vermont, we reduce poverty in Vermont, and we see more of our kids growing up in poverty who succeed, get beyond high school, get great jobs, and have great opportunities in what is the best state for quality of life in the country. So keep it up, Vermont Foodbank. We're proud of you. And get out and enjoy the sun because, you know, we don't get too many days like this in Vermont. Thank you.